Part 106. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1055. Chapter 1055 An Unexpected Success too. Both Garen and Lan Polestar's hands were on the handle of the knife at the same time. Lan Polestar's knife was a short black dagger like a dagger. Chi. In an instant, the two of them drew their swords at the same time, and the red and black knife marks shot towards each other almost like lightning. The two knives rushed into each other's body at the same time with a strong chill. The sound of the blade piercing flesh. All the last force fields of Blue Polestar exploded, rolling up a large amount of white cold air to cover the surroundings, blocking sight and sound, and at the same time pushing away the Blue Frost sect people behind them. Especially his sister. With white breath, his knife stabbed hard into the center of Garen's chest. But the blade seemed to be illusory and insubstantial, and the entire black dagger was rapidly melting, entering Garen's body, and quickly merging into a small black ball. "This is all my inherited power. Take it and give it all to you," Blue Polestar whispered. "Hey. Remember your promise." A huge amount of chilly air surged out of his body crazily, flowing toward Garen's body and along the black short knife between the two of them. As the dagger melted faster, the cold air surged faster and faster. Garen frantically absorbed the cold air, but Chixyagong quickly absorbed it to its saturation limit. The chill consciousness coming from the non-falling level quickly condensed into a small black ball, which was about to completely subside and lurked into the center of Garen's chest. But at this moment, the secret of life in his body, the Wuhan prison peacock skill, broke out for the first time without anyone controlling it. Countless blue threads rushed toward the black ball from all directions, covering the black inheritance power in just the blink of an eye. Form into a ball of blue. What surprised Garen was that in his attribute column, the completion of the 7th level of the Cold Hell Peacock technique was increasing rapidly. Starting from the original 64%, it jumps up at a speed of almost 3 points per second. After years of practice in this martial art, Garen had almost forgotten that he would improve the powerful secret martial arts. At this time, a terrifying mutation finally appeared for the first time. The power of inheritance from the root of not falling down seems to be his great tonic. The surrounding white air dispersed. Lan Jixing, who was as skinny as firewood, knelt down in front of Garen, and all his energy and spirit had completely disappeared. "Elder brother." The only remaining young girl in the Blue Frost sect screamed in pain. She covered her face with her hands and cried out in pain. "Brother," several remaining junior brothers cried out in despair. How could it be so fast? The senior sister stared at Garen in disbelief. She soon saw the open wound on Garen's chest. "Die." He, the two blood-robed men rushed forward at the same time. The remaining two stood still, obviously thinking that there was no need to take action themselves. In just a blink of an eye, the last few disciples of the Blue Frost sect were all killed. Facing the undegraded masters, they were as helpless as babies. At this time, both senior sister and Garen have already guessed the identities of these 4 blood-robed people. All the non-relegated people in the nearby star field are registered with their names. Such powerful people will not appear for no reason. The only explanation for the 4 non-degraded energy masters is that they are simply local elders living nearby. At this moment, Garen was watching his Cold Hell Peacock skill rising crazily, absorbing so much malachite. Today, he finally had real hope of exerting his strength. The disciple's secret martial art, Cold Hell Peacock Kung Fu, will definitely not be the pure auxiliary role it used to be. Garen has always felt that this secret martial art seems to have only a slight strengthening effect on him. Instead, it mainly exposes the seeds of distortion to the outside world. The improvement in biology is extremely terrifying. In terms of improving his own strength, he is completely useless and is far from being in line with the powerful reputation of Shenzi Mai Wu. Now there are 8 levels in total of the Secret of Life Wuhan Prison Peacock Kung Fu, and he will soon complete the 7th level. Once he enters the 8th level, this is the ultimate state. For a disciple of the secret martial arts of life, even the original Heza said that the practice of the secret martial arts of life is very difficult and very difficult. This secret martial arts will continue to change according to the subject's situation and become it is more suitable for the subject, consistent with the subject, and reaches the level of maximizing its power. There was no sound, and in silence, Garen saw that the percentage of his cold prison peacock skill finally exceeded 100%. The entire state of the cold prison peacock skill blurred for a moment, then quickly became clear again. All other abilities and talents are still the same, but the effects have been strengthened more. The entire peacock skill only has one more ability. Peacockization. There was no explanation behind it, but Garen felt an unknown chill rising from the bottom of his heart just by seeing this word. At this time, a blood-robed man had moved in front of Blue Pole Star's sister, stretched out his hand and nodded towards her head like lightning. Snapped. The girl rolled her eyes, and all her consciousness was like a deflated balloon, completely leaking out. He was completely reduced to an ordinary person. Not only that, his consciousness was completely leaked and disappeared. Even the pilot was unable to practice and could only be the most ordinary person. With a pop, the girl fainted. The man in blood robe mentioned the girl and smiled towards Garen. He shook his hand, and with a bang, the girl slammed towards Garen like a cannonball with a large force field. Garen took over, rotated his body in a circle, alleviated all the impact, and caught the unconscious girl. He glanced at the man lightly. What was beyond his expectation was that the terrifying blood-robed force field was swallowed up by the peacock kung fu silently. It was not the kind of swallowing that required the blue thread to light up, but it was swallowed up naturally and invisibly. It is as natural as breathing and drinking water, without any discomfort. There are a few moments the blood-robed man was slightly startled. Originally, he planned to give Galleon, who was not at the heritage level, a bit of a showdown, but he didn't expect the heritage level force field opponent to follow him calmly. Is this the power of the secret weapon? Garen came to this world and felt for the first time that the secret weapon could surpass the power of this special world's technology. This is also the first time that the secret weapon of life is no longer a purely auxiliary secret weapon, but can actually play a role in battle. A secret martial artist should not have weaknesses. Garen suddenly recalled what Heza said when he was still alive. Yes, the secret martial arts of life should not have such an obvious weakness as not being able to fight head-on. He sighed softly, carried the girl to Lan Polestar's body, and picked up a silver clip from his collar. This is where all the precious treasures of Blue Polestar are located. Carthage asked him to agree to this request just now. Garen knew that he was not qualified to agree, so he raised his head and looked at Carthage, who was controlling the floating. What he didn't expect was that Carthage in the air seemed to be talking to a woman dressed in blue and with all her limbs broken off. Ignore him. The woman seemed to be from the Blue Frost section. Her hands and feet had been chopped off, leaving only a torso. Their lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. The woman was very excited and seemed to be questioning something, but Carthage still had a calm smile on his lips, nothing unusual. Garen stood below and looked at the two of them, frowning slightly. He didn't know why at this time, but he had a very strange feeling, as if the extremely terrifying pressure of Carthage in the sky came to him like a breeze blowing on his face, without any warning, and the soul was slowly planted in his mind. Turning around, no more alarms were issued. He could feel that he could inflate his entire body, a complete stretch, inflating like a balloon, as if this body was not his real body at all. This feeling has been there since he just broke through the cold hell peacock kung fu. But now it is getting stronger. He vaguely remembered that the 8th level of the cold hell peacock skill was already the highest level of the secret seed of life, and it was also the legendary level that should reach the Legion level. How far can the Legion level reach compared to the mechanical master pilot? Garen suddenly felt the urge to change his body. but reason forcibly suppressed it. Theoretically, he broke through the 8th level of the Cold Hell Peacock and reached the highest level, belonging to the Legion level. However, in fact, he did not feel any obvious changes in his body. Apart from the strengthening and expansion of some abilities, he was still the original him. Legion level. The former 9-headed dragon king Nadia was at this level. She was the top expert at the Legion level. Only one step away from the devil. Just by projecting the clone, Garen almost died. In the ancient Yinduo civilization's hierarchy, the gap between each level is like a chasm. The outcome cannot be determined by stacking numbers. The same is true for the core level and the general level below. For some reason, Garen suddenly looked at Carthage suspended in the sky, and a trace of longing welled up in his heart. It was a very strange desire, not love or anything like that, but a simple desire as if seeing extremely delicious food. He could feel his saliva secreting and the blood flowing in his body accelerating. Suddenly Carthage's eyes looked this way, and he frowned slightly as if he had sensed something. Garen quickly lowered his head and made a gesture of checking the girl in his arms. Forcibly suppress the impulsive desire in my heart. Garen looked around and saw that the 4 blood-robed men had already shot into the distance to assist in the massacre of the remaining Bluefrost sect disciples. The senior sister of the Bluefrost sect has been silently grabbed by a blood-robed man and carried in his hands to fly. Her entire face was ashen and there was no sparkle in her eyes. Fight! Garen suddenly heard the crazy roar of a young man coming from behind him. Looking back, he saw several young disciples stepping on the ruins with their own flying bird energy weapons, rushing towards him. What shocked him slightly was that these young people were actually flashing extremely huge energy reactions. Boom! The white flame exploded, turning out to be a high-energy plasma bomb. The terrifying high temperature reaching tens of thousands of degrees instantly melted everything around it into liquid and gaseous state, completely forming a terrifying magma pool with Galen as the center. But the white magma solidified and cooled instantly just after it formed. Garen stood there without making any movement. The heat emitted by the high-energy plasma bomb that could threaten the heritage level was right in front of him, as if blocked by an invisible barrier. Its huge heat and impact seemed to be absorbed by something at a terrifying speed. In less than 2 seconds, all the heat of the bomb completely disappeared. Garen was a little confused. He didn't make a move at all. His consciousness and Chixu's power had just been condensed in his palm. Before he could release it to resist, he saw the power of the bomb disappear. Is this devouring? His body suddenly shook, and he actually felt a ball of high heat energy distortion in his body. And this seed is still being paradoxically transformed into a large amount of cold energy pouring into his Chixu. Without any action on his part, all damage was absorbed automatically. Not even the slightest repercussions affected him. Is this the 8th level Cold Hell Peacock skill? Garen was shocked. The urge in his heart suddenly became stronger and stronger, and an extremely strong hunger surged from his stomach. I really want to eat him. Garen raised his head again and looked at Carthage in the sky. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1056. Lowering his head, Garen could faintly feel that his chi snow skill was constantly rising. The energy seeds absorbed by the plasma bomb were continuously and crazily improving his chi snow skill, not just like the potential point. Reduce the accumulation of the same breakthroughs, but forcefully pile up. This rate of increase is not ordinary and terrifying. At this rate, the huge amount of cold energy I need to reach the standard from the 11th floor to the 12th floor will only take more than a month to reach the standard. It is only a little slower than the ancestral palace, Garen calculated in his mind using the energy mark. Next, I was suddenly surprised. Ordinary energy masters need to accumulate a total amount of energy for a long time from the resonance stage to the inheritance level in order to reach the breakthrough standard. Individual talents with extraordinary talents will need to accumulate even longer. Generally, it is based on years. The most talented people need 5 or 6 years. It was only possible because there was no threshold for computing power, but now Galleon not only felt that his accumulated cold energy had increased significantly by 1 level in just a moment. He looked around and began to walk slowly among the ruins. Blue Pole Star's sister was carried by a black wolf he summoned and followed slowly behind him. The people brought by Carthage were not only the blood-robed people and the jumping masters who came with them, but also the most powerful giant apes, as well as a large number of masked people wearing red tights. These masked people are extremely fast, and the worst they can do is level 3. The squad leader level has 4 and 5 levels. Occasionally, you can see a resonance level. Haha, this is mine. Advanced genetic potion. A masked man crashed through the wall on the left and flew out, followed by 2 masked men chasing after him. Robbing our brother's things, you are tired of living, the 2 of them didn't say anything, and they attacked for a while. They used a very agile palm technique, passing flowers like butterflies, looking light and airy. Yes, but where the palm hits, it will directly knock down a large wall. There seems to be a diffusion effect. These people don't have any force field fluctuations on their bodies, but their auras are obscure and they don't know their specific levels. The street where Garen was advancing was blocked by them, so he simply stopped temporarily and waited for them to finish. The 3 of them were fighting together, as if they belonged to the same section. They all used the same palm and body techniques, and they were going around in a dizzying manner. Bang! Suddenly there was a muffled sound, and the man holding the thing shook his hand, and the thing immediately flew out and landed not far from Garen's feet. It rolled around a few times and turned out to be a small crystal bottle, which was not broken. The 3 of them suddenly separated during the entanglement and looked towards Garen at the same time. Seeing Garen, a trace of fear suddenly flashed in his eyes. It turns out to be Master Garen. You don't want to grab the secret arts books here, but you still care about the good stuff from us ordinary weapon masters. Isn't it a bit too much? One person opened his mouth, calling him an adult, but his tone lacked any real respect. I'm not interested in what you snatch, Garen said calmly. Carthage mentioned these people to him. These peripheral elements only have an employment relationship with them. No one can control anyone. It is only a temporary relationship. The 3 of them stopped moving, obviously not believing it. Although I don't know what gene the high-grade genetic potion in a small bottle is, the entire medium-sized sect such as Bluefrost's sect will not have more than 10 bottles. It is a good thing with a price but no market, at least it is worth it. Thousands of golden crystals, something like this is not comparable to the Red Eagle gene that Garen originally transplanted. It's just that Garen's genes have evolved from Red Eagle to Blood Eagle, and at the same time, it has turned into a dark whirlpool. I don't know when it will take shape. In addition, he was distracted by a series of big changes and didn't want to cause trouble, so he didn't plan to snatch things. Seeing the 3 men's eyes becoming more and more ferocious, Garen frowned and took a step back. I'm really not interested in him. You can do whatever you want. The 3 of them relaxed slightly when they saw him moving away from the crystal bottle. Who knows if he plans to wait for the 3 of us to fight until we are both injured, and then snatch the bottle, a masked man suddenly sneered. As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the other 2 people suddenly became fierce again. Garen became a little impatient and glanced at Carthage in the sky. He didn't look here at all. He simply walked sideways around the crystal bottle and walked toward the gap on the right. I'm too lazy to talk to these greedy people anymore. Stop him. He wants to hide and wait until we both get hurt, the man from before shouted fiercely. The 3 people who had been fighting each other fiercely before now actually quickly flashed and surrounded Galen and the crystal bottle in the middle. You are so annoying. Garen was completely enraged and hit one of them with his right palm. The simple double moon level force field suddenly crushed him with a huge chill. The air suddenly twisted and fluctuated, and the image of a giant wolf condensed in mid-air, opening its big mouth and biting the man. Shocking electromagnetic palm. The man was not as fast as Galleon's, but he reacted very quickly. He raised his palms and faced him head-on. A trace of blue arcs appeared on his palms, and a level 5 force field also surged, turning into a transparent wall. Force field air wall. The giant air wolf collided with the wall of harmony. With a pop, the air wall was torn apart, and the volleying force field with the power of Chixia-gong's palm met his vibrating electromagnetic palm. Call. The transparent air giant wolf was severely defeated, and countless cold air flew away. Huh, is this the strength that the leader values? It's vulnerable, the man sneered and closed his hands, but saw that Garen had actually walked to the crystal bottle, bent down to pick up the bottle, and put it into his space equipment. He wanted to speak loudly, but suddenly realized that something was wrong. When he looked down, he found that his lower body could not move at all. It had been frozen into a huge lump of ice, and the ice was still silent. The breath spread upwards, but he didn't notice it at all. Boom! He was frightened and angry, and hit the ice with both palms with all his strength, but it only broke the surface of the ice, and the lower part was still spreading violently upwards. "Brother, save me!" he yelled hastily, but no response came. Turning around, I saw that the other two people had been frozen into two lumps of ice without knowing when, and they were motionless on the flat ground. Click. The ice mask completely froze the last part of his head and upper body. The masked man felt his consciousness darken, and suddenly he no longer had any consciousness. What a strong cold energy! Garen was slightly frightened when he saw this. After entering Dachan's Cold Hell Peacock skill, the amplification of his Chixia skill was not as strong as usual. He simply hit a palm with level 5 power to expand the range, and the 3 level 5 weapon masters were frozen instantly, and they didn't even have time to resist. Seeing this, Garen simply let go of the chaotic cold realm of the cold prison peacock skill. Looking down from above, with Galleon as the center, a clear ring of white mist suddenly spreads around. The entire area of hundreds of meters that was passed by the fog was actually covered with layers of thick ice. The bright and transparent ice layer is extremely hard, comparable to the highest grade alloy. On the buildings and ruins, there were corpses lying on the ground, masked men still fighting for the spoils, and the fleeing Blue Frost disciples. As long as you enter the range of 100 meters around Galleon, you will be completely frozen into a large lump of ice in just 2 seconds. Garen controlled the cold field and walked forward slowly. The 100-meter wide cold field instantly covered the surfaces of a large number of buildings with ice, and some masked people who could not escape were completely frozen into lumps of ice. Some of them had just grabbed good things and were laughing wildly, and in an instant they turned into huge lumps of ice. Some were still fighting with the disciples of the Blue Frost sect, and both sides were covered by the cold air and froze directly. There are also those who see something bad happening and run away quickly. Only part of his body was frozen, and it thawed quickly, but he was also frightened by the terrifying and abnormal cold air, and he quickly escaped from the range. Garen killed 3 masked men, but seeing that Carthage ignored them completely, he didn't bother to talk nonsense and just opened the cold zone. Dachan's Cold Hell Peacock technique: anyone below level 5 in the cold realm cannot last for 1 second, while those at level 5 and resonance level can last from 2 to 5 seconds. The inheritance level harm had just enough time to fly away in embarrassment. Garen randomly grabbed a masked man along the way and asked about its location, then walked directly towards the Blue Frost sect's secret technique database. Wherever he and the Black Wolf went, there was a blanket of snow all around, and everything quickly froze. It was like entering a severe winter in an instant. All the masked men quickly avoided his path, and only dared to continue looting with fear on the outside. Along the way, there was ice and snow everywhere. Even if the sun was shining, no one could feel the slightest warmth. Throughout the center of the moon-white city, the streets Garen walked formed a road of crystal clear ice. A large amount of cold air continued to spread, and even the disciples of the Blue Frost sect did not dare to stay within the piercing cold. Walking all the way to the center of the Blue Frost sect's headquarters, the stone carousel building that fell from the sky, Garen saw two masked men standing at the gate, Bing Tuo, who had no time to leave. A female disciple of the Blue Frost sect was lying on the ground. Her lower body was naked, stained with blood, and frozen in ice. The three of them had no life left. When he got here, Garen sighed, suddenly raised his head and looked at a dilapidated ruined building on the right, where a man in blood robes was standing. "This is a gift from the Lord to you." The man in blood robes said coldly, not affected by the cold air at all. He flicked his finger and shot out a black-red glass bead, which was caught by Garen and held in his hand. "What's the use of this?" Garen frowned. He didn't care that the other party was not affected by the cold air. After all, he could still use the red snow technique to enhance the effect of cold energy radiation. The current level was not his strongest state, just the basic level. Only the cold energy radiation cold field superimposed with the chi snow technique is truly the strongest. He is confident that the opponent can resist the basic chaotic cold field, but it may not be able to resist his full burst of cold energy. Absorb it? It can make you reborn. The blood-robed Manjija laughed strangely twice, jumped back, and disappeared into the air. Snort. Garen looked indifferent, glanced at the blood bead, did not use it, but put it into the space ring. Not far away, a few hundred meters away, was a small building that was still intact. The figure of the man in blood robe instantly appeared on the second-floor seat. "What a strong cold," he shuddered violently, and the blood robe cracked and scattered a large amount of ice, which fell to the floor and quickly melted and evaporated. Tisk, tisk, freezing the air is the terrifying thing about Halo-type energy masters. Another blood-robed man appeared out of thin air in an empty seat on the opposite side, gloating, "No wonder Carthage takes a fancy to him, with such power. I don't know who has the stronger aura, him or Queen Red Lotus. How can he compete with the Red Lotus Queen?" "Are you kidding?" the man in blood robe retorted. "Ice has the lowest temperature extreme, but there is no upper limit to high temperature. Ice cannot compete with fire. This is a fact recognized by all able mechanics and pilots. The strongest ancestor of the Chixia sect at that time cultivated the Chixia Kung Fu in the cold region to at the peak of Dzogchen. He was still defeated by a master of the Red Lotus sect in 10 moves, and then died of serious injuries when he came back, which has proven this truth. I just find it interesting." Shuigao later smiled and didn't tell the difference. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1057. Bang. Wherever Garen went forward, as far as he could see, the blocked door was naturally frozen to the point where cracks appeared, and then quickly shattered into countless pieces of ice amidst the drastic changes in temperature. The door is open. At this time, with Galleon as the center, all living creatures around it are frozen. He walked through a solemn ornately decorated passage, which was more than 10 meters wide, and was filled with corpses and masked people frozen into lumps of ice. Cross the passage and walk in through the huge white stone door that has been opened. Inside are rows of bookshelves with secret techniques that have lost their protective measures. On the white stone bookshelf, there are densely packed books on various secret techniques. I didn't expect that even in the age of technology, the original book preservation method is still maintained like this. Garen sighed. The surrounding area was empty, and no one answered his words. Even if there were any living survivors, they were frozen into ice by the severe cold air. Galleon converges the cold realm to prevent damage to the secret book. Then he stepped forward and observed them one by one. The entire library exhibition hall is white, just a little darker than white snow. There is a white crystal screen on the vaulted ceiling. At this time, it is automatically lighting up with a faint soft white light, and there are also delicate and complex patterns flowing, giving people a heavy and simple feeling. Garin walked in the middle, flanked by stone bookshelves as tall as a person on both sides. There would be an open tome placed on a shelf at regular intervals in the middle passage, placed for people to read. Garin looked at it for a while, and found that most of the tomes he opened contained content that recorded the history of this library. There are also biographies of famous people here. After a casual look, he quickly found the place where the Bluefrost sect's secret martial arts secrets were stored. As expected, it is the sect with the largest collection of techniques among the medium-sized sects. Seeing a bookshelf full of ice-type secret martial arts techniques, Garin sincerely praised them. He reached out and began to quickly flip through the memories one by one. However, what disappointed him was that many of the above contents were relatively low-level, and many of them overlapped with Qixuegong, and were even inferior to Qixuegong. The inspiration and vision were far inferior to the level of Qixuegong. That's the low to intermediate level. Garin looked through it quickly and concisely. There are a total of 32 secret books and techniques here, which are not fighting skills but pure main techniques. The content of 17 of them overlaps with Qixuegong and is of little use except for broadening the perspective of thinking. Among the remaining 15, 6 need to be practiced from scratch and are very exclusive and incompatible, otherwise it may cause meridians and blood vessels suffer overload and other injuries. Of the 9 remaining books, 3 can only be practiced and removed by women. The last 6 books are the secret martial arts that can be superimposed with his Qixuegong. There are 2 main things that restrict the improvement of skill. One is intelligence and computing power, and the other is the skill bottleneck. If the talent in computing power is strong enough, it will lead to an improvement in skill while being promoted, but the improvement in skill will in turn affect and drive enhanced calculation. It takes many years of improvement and accumulation. Although as long as one of the 2 improves, it can drive the other to improve together, but it is too difficult to use skills to drive computing power. Garin shook his head slightly in his mind, but I have enough potential points now. If I can superimpose a large number of ice-based skills, it may have unexpected effects. The advantage of using potential points in this way is that it can be superimposed with the effects of the skills, and it is possible to achieve the goal of breaking through the major skills. This is integration and promotion. Different exercises have different degrees of strengthening and different perspectives of thinking, which may result in quantitative accumulation leading to qualitative changes. This is how he achieved his goal in the world of secret martial arts. Quickly take down these 6 secret books, read them carefully and scan them into your own energy mark. Garin rubbed his hands and immediately finished reading one book and then destroyed the other. The book turned into tiny pieces of paper, which was burned directly by a wisp of flame from his scimitar and turned into ashes. Potential points must be used sparingly. Now it seems to me that the cold hell peacock technique can replace the potential points by devouring and accumulating skills. In this case, although it is not as fast as the potential points, I can save a lot of expenditure and only use the potential points for exercises. Superimposed improvements, Garin thought in his mind. He recalled the cold hell peacock mother in ancient Yinduo mythology, which swallowed everything and turned it into cold energy that radiated into the universe. Her physique and regeneration ability were simply immortal. Obviously, his current cold prison peacock skill simulates the ability of the cold prison peacock mother. Swallow all things and use them to convert them all into cold energy. With his heart moving, Garin stretched out his hand to grab a secret book. A large number of threads were no longer blue, but transparent. They instantly poured out of his palm, wrapped around the book, and swallowed it directly. Suddenly, Garin felt that there were traces of extremely weak light yellow energy balls in his body. Almost instantly, they were converted into pure cold energy and merged into the resonance crystal of Qixuegong, becoming a boost to the accumulation of skill. Really? Potential point, Dachin's Cold Hell Peacock skill, the combination of the two is simply terrifying. The Cold Hell Peacock technique originally does not train combat power, but basically transforms the practitioner into the larvae of the Cold Hell Peacock, which swallows everything and turns it into energy to strengthen itself. This is simply an unreasonable transformation. Even opposing heat energy can be turned into cold energy. It makes no sense. Garen shook his head speechlessly. It was like turning flames into ice. But when you think about the many refrigeration equipment in technology, it's not so hard to accept. I carefully recalled the 6 newly obtained secret books. They are all at least first-class secret martial arts. Compared with Chixyagong, they are only slightly weaker. They are weaker in combination with computing power, but they are enough to be used. The inherited skills are spread. Garen did not choose to practice all of them, some of which did not suit his style. He only selected the parts that could strengthen his skills, and the rest were just as reserves. Ready to retreat. Suddenly a calm voice sounded in Garen's ears. It's Carthage. In 10 minutes, everyone will retreat and start jumping. Anyone who disobeys the order will perish, Carthage ordered calmly. Garen waved his hand to put away all the secret books, and at the same time quickly began to search for secret books on other bookshelves. Fighting skills, other types of secret martial arts, auxiliary types, various experience records, etc. The entire library of books and information was quickly wiped out by him. Raising his head, Garen gently held the handle of the knife in his hand. Resonance. Amid the violent vibrations, black giant wolves suddenly appeared around Garen. All the giant wolves roared and shot out towards the sky. Bang! Bang 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 bang! Continuous wolf shadows rushed up to the ceiling, directly knocking out a large clear hole in the solid defense here. The sunlight from outside shone in, and a cloud of dust filled the air. Amidst the crashing sound of gravel falling, Galen flew up and rushed out of the hole. The black wolf behind him jumped up, and the girl on his back flew up. Garen hugged her directly from the waist. The black wolf turned into a shadow and absorbed his space ring. The airflow kept reverberating in his ears, and Garen flew higher and higher. He turned around and saw the headquarters of the Bluefrost sect, a crescent-shaped white city. Many places were burning with flames that reached into the sky, and the red fire illuminated the entire city. A reddish, black smoke billowed into the sky, forming dozens of clear black smoke pillars. Taking a deep breath, Garen smelled a distinct smell of sulfur smoke, wondering what was being burned. Boom! Something exploded below, and yellow flames shot up into the sky. The tongues of fire rolled up one by one, quickly igniting the surrounding buildings. A steady stream of people in red flew towards the slowly opening black vortex in the sky. Carthage stood high in the sky, looking down at everything like a god. 4 bloody robes rose into the sky and quickly disappeared into the air, leaving no trace as before. Garen flew high into the sky and hovered back to a position slightly behind Carthage. Bow your head to show respect. He couldn't see the strength of this man clearly. He originally thought he was just a general under the White King, but he didn't expect that he was actually the clone of another powerful existence. This was extremely terrifying. Garen felt as if he had just seen clearly the strength of Carthage, but as he showed greater strength, he immediately fell into a fog again. Take the blood beads I gave you as soon as possible. I sacrificed 100,000 people with blood, but I only got this little thing. Carthage turned his face slightly and looked at Garen. Garen's heart was slightly shaken. 100,000 people. The thing obtained by sacrificing the blood of 100,000 people is obviously not the essence of righteousness. I wonder what the use of this blood bead is. He was silent for a moment and then asked. You'll know after you eat it. Carthage smiled mysteriously. Of course you can choose not to eat it. A trace of cold murderous intent slowly emanated from him. Garen lowered his head, knowing that he had to eat the bead. I see. He took out the black-red bead, looked at it before his eyes, and then threw it into his mouth and swallowed it. The bead melted into a stream of heat as soon as it entered the mouth. Instead of entering the stomach, it penetrated directly into the blood vessels from the mouth and quickly spread throughout the body along with the blood flow. Carthage smiled with satisfaction when he saw Garin gaining a faint breath after eating the essence of flesh and blood. "Let's go." At this time, everyone had entered the black vortex, and the vortex began to shrink. A trace of black smoke appeared around Carthage, surrounding him and Galen. The two of them rushed into the whirlpool, and the passage behind them immediately closed completely. Garin held Blue Polestar's sister without saying a word, using his force field to protect the girl who had become an ordinary person, and followed Carthage and flew forward at high speed. As expected, the bead was, as Carthage said, constantly releasing a terrifying amount of flesh and blood essence. This essence was so magical that it could directly and slowly strengthen the body's physique. But it also gradually dyed every part of the body with a faint layer of red. Is it something used to control masters? Garin calmly tried to use Chixia Kung Fu to eliminate this red essence, but it was useless. Chixia Kung Fu seemed to be unable to touch this thing at all. But he soon discovered that this layer of red seemed to require no action from him at all. The silent activation of the Cold Hell Peacock Kung Fu suddenly began to transform this red color into a large amount of cold energy, which was added to the accumulation of Chi Snow Kung Fu. The black ball energy seeds that originally absorbed the plasma bomb had accumulated quickly enough, but now it seems faster with this red essence. Garin's eyelids were twitching wildly as he watched as a huge amount of cold energy was transformed and poured into his Chixiagong resonance crystal. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1058. Click. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the crystal of Chixiagong. Less than half a second later, the crystal shattered suddenly and turned into dozens of triangular diamond-shaped red fragments, which began to rotate at high speed. As the fragments rotated, a large amount of Chixiagong Han energy poured in like crazy again. Garin knew that now was the critical moment. This vortex was formed by the shattering of crystals. It would rotate at high speed in the middle, condensing a little bit of inheritance-level essence energy, which is the power of the source. Of course, this kind of condensation requires a huge amount of energy and needs to be accumulated over many years, but now the Cold Prison Peacock skill is pouring energy into it crazily, and the scale of the vortex is quickly getting bigger and bigger. Garin even felt that his breath was a little unstable. Fortunately, the red gem covered his breath, otherwise he would probably be discovered by Carthage immediately. Whoosh! The two rushed out of the tunnel and appeared out of thin air in the previous desert, with a black vortex in front of them. Carthage didn't say much and rushed into the second vortex again. Garin followed closely behind. This time his jump was very fast, almost in the blink of an eye, he appeared in a wilderness snowfield on the red snow star. Astonishingly, it was the snowy field he had left before. It was still dark at this time, and he and Carthage were the only two people standing in the snow. Move freely. There will be another action in about a year. I will inform you. Carthage left a word, turned around and left slowly. Yes. Garin hugged Lan Polestar's sister and responded in a low voice. It wasn't until Carthage's breath quickly left that he lowered his head and looked at Lan Polestar's sister, who was still unconscious in his arms. This is a young girl with short blue hair, wearing a blue-black tunic shirt, a white pleated skirt, and black stockings that reach to the middle of her thighs, highlighting her slender and round legs. He should have looked very energetic, but now his face was pale, and his delicate face looked like I felt pity for him. This reminded him of his sister in the secret martial arts world. She was just as lovable back then, but it was a pity. If you want to blame it, it's your bad luck. Garin sighed softly and issued a command in the energy mark. Not long after, a black spaceship with a triangular head flew out of the dark night sky. It made no sound in the night, and there was not even any jet at the tail. Garen jumped up, flew up, and entered the spaceship from the side. Hours later, in a star field extremely far away from the home star and the four-ring star alliance, a pitch-black black hole suddenly appeared above a planet with a backward edge, and a shuttle-shaped spaceship with a triangular head flew out of it. The black spaceship shot out of the black hole and landed directly on the pale yellow planet below. Welcome to a resource-free planet. According to civilization regulations, your spaceship must leave within 3 planet rotations, otherwise it will be considered a violation of Civilization Alliance Law 320. Snapped. Garen slapped the console in front of him and turned off the warning sound of the smart computer. The Civilization Alliance Law is a rule jointly formulated by the major races such as Fenites and humans. It is effective for ordinary people, but it is undoubtedly a piece of paper for advanced energy mechanics like them. Even the slave planet is controlled by someone, let alone the Civilization Alliance Law. If this planet wasn't too far away from the main star field, it would have been directly occupied by those greedy guys. Even if it's galleons, it's a bit painful to jump over once. The resources of 20 gold crystals are gone at once. How many people can afford such a huge expense? This is a terrifying distance of millions of light years. Galleon entered counter space several times and jumped through long-distance stargates more than 10 times before he finally found such a suitable star that was judged to be a rare resource. Planet of human civilization. Looking back at the short-haired girl sleeping in the ice coffin behind him, Garen shook his head. It's okay. It's such a long distance, far away from the war, far away from the hustle and bustle, forgetting everything, just enough to live peacefully, as an ordinary person. The spaceship accelerated rapidly, breaking through the atmosphere and passing through the white clouds. Gradually, we could see the stretching yellow mountains and rivers below, and a human city that looked like a gray patch. Turn on stealth mode. There was a sound in the spaceship. The operator's spaceship went straight down and slowly hovered over the city. Garen put on his optical invisibility suit and flew out of the spaceship with the girl in his arms. My head hurt so much. In a pure white room, the girl woke up from a coma, rubbed her head and got up from the ground. His mind was blank, like an empty hard drive with no content. Looking at everything unfamiliar in front of her, she blinked her eyes, looked at the blue and black shirt and white skirt she was wearing, and suddenly understood. Oh, I just came back from cosplay. I fainted due to hypoglycemia. I didn't expect to sleep for so long. She picked up a few scattered documents, ID cards, bank cards, and 1 or 2 shopping mall membership cards from the ground. I picked up the ID card and looked at it. The short-haired girl on it had a sweet and beautiful smile. Tian, suddenly a strange feeling came to her heart. The girl didn't know why. She felt like crying, but she didn't know why. What's going on? Did you watch too many tragic TV dramas yesterday? She patted her face. I'm Tian, a small store manager who runs a cosplay cafe. My income can barely sustain myself. I'm 23 this year. At the age of 18, both parents died, and the only brother I have left is nowhere to be found. As she spoke, the tears in her eyes could no longer be held back and fell down her cheeks. There was an inexplicable and indescribable emotion in my heart that was blocked and I couldn't vent it. She looked down at her ID card. The girl on it smiled very sweetly, but she suddenly felt a strong sense of unreality. Just outside the garden gate of this residential building, a tall man wearing a black windbreaker looked here from a distance, sighed softly, and turned around to leave. Garen walked slowly on the streets of this planet, looking at the small shopkeepers who were greeting customers and introducing their products, the backpackers who were hiking with large backpacks on their backs, and the young women who were holding a child in one hand and reading something while holding a phone in the other. Unexpectedly, this planet was very similar to the Earth he lived on back then, with the same level of civilization, the same busyness and peace. Call. A bright blue roadster passed by Galen, bringing with it gusts of wind. It soon disappeared at the end of the somewhat empty street lane. Garen suddenly felt a little lonely. As he traveled through more and more worlds, this feeling of loneliness was just a little bit at first, but now, it has unknowingly reached an extremely real point that he cannot ignore. Regardless of whether there are relatives or not, whether there are lovers or not, regardless of the different people passing by, I keep moving forward like a float, without looking back or being able to look back. Sometimes he thought that he might live in one place forever until he grows old and dies, but after death, it will be another rebirth and time travel. Call. He took a deep breath. He had been pursuing power so crazily because he wanted to get rid of this loneliness of drifting with the crowd. Suddenly, another bright blue convertible passed by him. "Hey, that cool old man over there, can you help me?" The car suddenly stopped on the street beside Garen. The driver was a young fair-skinned girl with big-toed glasses, who looked like a delicate lady. She was staring at Garen with interest. "Can I ask where you bought this outfit? Which cosplay character is it from?" The two of them were just passers-by who met by chance. Unexpectedly, this girl was not afraid of strangers at all and was so generous that people were speechless. Garen looked at this little guy and looked down at his own clothes. This clothes was actually a special effect. It was the camouflage function of the three-heart shoulder of the Red Snow sect. He had no idea what character he was cosplaying, and logically speaking, this shouldn't happen. Suddenly his eyes fell on the blue scimitar hanging on his waist, and it turned out that this was the problem. No wonder he always felt that the people he interacted with were circling around him. It turned out that there was something wrong with this detail. But since that's the case, it doesn't matter if you just carry it with you. "I don't cosplay anyone," Garen smiled slightly and replied gently. "Then why are you carrying a knife?" the girl asked curiously. She was dressed fashionably, with long black hair shawl, a sleeveless white shirt and a pink skirt with long black stockings underneath. She looked very mature, but in fact Garen could tell at a glance that the girl's bone age was no more than 19 years old. "That's for self-defense," Garen replied casually. "It's a lie." "Do you think I'm a little girl, so easy to deceive?" The girl showed an expression as if she was trying to trick someone else. Garen smiled and did not answer. He looked at the identity mark of the Scarlet Snow Sex Energy Weapon Master hanging on his scimitar. It was a red hexagonal pattern. "Hey, don't you see, uncle, you are quite fashionable? Are you still wearing a ring at such an old age?" The girl seemed to be interested in him and followed him in the car. At this time, he saw the space ring that Garen inadvertently revealed. The style of this space ring is very unique. It is completely black and has a ferocious wolf head carved on the surface, which symbolizes Garen's identity, the Black Wolf. "Little guy, you can't just pretend to be mature. It's very dangerous outside. Don't go out and wander around. Go home." Garen looked at this little girl who looked mature but was actually innocent, shook his head and said gently, "You're an uncle, aren't you? You're only in your 20s, so who do you show to me by pretending to have a weathered look in your eyes? You're not much older than me." The girl was immediately unconvinced. "It would be very dangerous for you to strike up a conversation with a stranger like this," Garen advised kindly. "TCH. Uncle, you have a problem with your thinking." Unexpectedly, the girl immediately retorted, "If everyone thinks the same as you, then no one will take the first step, and people in this world will only become more and more indifferent, and distance will be lost. Getting further and further away. If you stay in your own small circle because you are afraid of danger and dare not contact outsiders, then you might as well stay at home for the rest of your life. Why go out and wander around? You will encounter more dangers when you go out shopping, and robbers will kill people. Criminals, fraudsters, there is a chance that a meteorite will fall from the sky and kill them. Are there many cases of murders caused by a small quarrel?" Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1059. Garen suddenly felt a little interesting. He didn't expect this little guy to be able to tell such a large amount of truth. Aren't you afraid of being rejected and embarrassed? Awkward? What's the point? The girl pouted. I prefer to make more friends than being embarrassed. I like liveliness and crowds. It's fun when there are many people. We can always come up with a lot of fun things together. It's much better than being bored alone. Garen shook his head. Hearing it, it was because his parents did not take good care of her psychology, which led to such a character of being afraid of loneliness. She likes to make friends because she is afraid of being lonely when she is alone. In fact, what such a little guy needs is that the people he cares about can accompany him, but many times this small wish cannot be satisfied. Hey, what's your name? Can you leave your phone number? This is the first time I've seen such a cool man with such a good figure. The girl actually started asking for the phone right away. Garen didn't expect that he would meet such an interesting little guy when he came to this planet just for a casual stroll in order to resettle Blue Pole Star's sister. What this little girl said is indeed right. He traveled through time and time again, from actively integrating at the beginning to now treating everything with indifference. No matter what, there was a barrier in my heart unconsciously, as if to protect myself from getting hurt when they were separated. What's the difference between this kind of behavior and what the girl said, not touching for fear of getting hurt? I didn't expect that I would be taught a lesson by a little guy. Garen laughed in his heart. He was probably a fraction older than this little girl, but he didn't expect that he couldn't see as clearly as she did. Hey! What do you want to ask me? The girl was still pressing. I don't have a phone. Garen shook his head. You lied to a child, the girl pouted and said unhappily. Didn't you see that I'm driving a sports car? A sports car? I'm very rich. You don't even want to know such a rich Kaiser. Are you sick? Garen was speechless. This guy's thoughts seemed a bit weird. How could anyone compare himself to Kaiser? Look, I can treat you to dinner, play with you, go shopping, give you gifts, and even play with good sisters and beauties, but you actually look unhappy. Is it interesting? The girl said. This time his true intention was revealed. He actually wanted to add long. Garen heard this meaning and looked down at his own image. The black trench coat was a little tight, outlining his figure, which was obviously taller and stronger than the average person. Apart from his figure, he had a slightly different temperament. He also adjusted his disguise on his face, which was ordinary and ordinary, without any characteristics. How could this little guy fall in love with him? By the way, you haven't answered my previous question yet. Why do you carry a knife? Since it's not cosplay, it has to have a purpose, right? The girl started to ask again. I actually practice martial arts. I use a knife, Garen explained casually. Seeing that the girl looked like she was lying to her again, he quickly caught up and said, I really didn't lie to you this time. He himself didn't know why he didn't leave quickly, but why he was spending time here with a little guy. But I don't know why such small talk made the loneliness in his heart faintly fade. It can be seen that this little guy is also lonely. Because of his loneliness, the two of them seemed to be in harmony unexpectedly. Along the way, Galleon walked and the girl drove. This strange combination of the two attracted the attention of others from time to time. But both of them talked about themselves as if they had no feelings. The sky gradually darkened, and it seemed to be night. Galen walked aimlessly along the streets to the suburbs. At the junction of urban and rural areas, there were more and more stalls on the roadside, and the clothes worn by the people gradually became shabby. It's time for you to go home, Garen said calmly. No hurry, you haven't called me yet, uncle, the little girl replied with a sweet smile. You are still young and don't understand what love is yet, Garen smiled. You're not much older than me, the girl was unhappy. Garen looked up at the sky and suddenly revealed a hint of loneliness unintentionally. It was very light, but the girl caught him sensitively. Are you leaving? she couldn't help but blurt out. She didn't know why, but when she saw this man for the first time, she felt that he was the same type of person as herself. They were both lonely, and their indifference on the outside was also due to fear of being hurt. She was dressed in a weird and cool-looking outfit, so she went up to get close to her with a set of crooked ideas. Unexpectedly, the two of them really got along better. This man had absolutely no concerns about his richness, and he didn't even bother to take a second look at the sports car. His indifference towards him could be felt from the beginning without even looking at him, it was too clear. "Where are you going?" the girl asked quickly. "Does your family live near here?" "I also have friends who live near here." She was afraid of hurting the other person's self-esteem. Most of the people living here were from very poor families. "Okay." Garen shook his head slightly and looked at the equally lonely girl gently. "You and I are destined to be together, so I give this to you." He didn't know when a dusty and inconspicuous ring appeared on his palm. It was rough, gray, and black, and looked very ordinary, nothing special. With a flick, the ring fell accurately into the car and was caught by the girl, as if the two of them had been rehearsing together for a long time and were very familiar with it. This made the girl's eyes widen immediately. "I hope you won't need it." When she looked down at the ring, Garen's figure disappeared silently into the air, completely disappearing. Raising her head, the girl immediately looked out of the empty car in shock. She looked around and saw no one around her at all. She hurriedly opened the door and got out of the car, walking around in circles. She could not find Garen at all in the middle of the empty street. Even if she ran away from the car and hid in an alley, it would take at least 5 or 6 seconds, but Garen Long just lowered his head and raised his head for a moment, and then disappeared from the world. "Hey! Uncle," she couldn't help but shouted in a hurry. "Uncle! Where are you?" She didn't know why she did this, shouting regardless of her image, but there was no reason, she just did it on impulse. "Chen Cheng, what are you doing? You are yelling here." A luxury car slowly drove from behind, and the window opened, revealing the faces of a middle-aged couple. "Dad," the girl wanted to explain, but was immediately interrupted. "Your uncle called me just now and said that you were driving a car alone and kept talking to yourself very slowly, as if someone was chatting with you next to you. It scared your uncle. What on earth are you doing?" "What are you doing?" the middle-aged man yelled sternly. "There was an uncle who was chatting with me just now," Chen Cheng defended with wide eyes. "What uncle? I think you are hallucinating. Go back and ask along the way. Has anyone seen what you said about uncle? It's all because you were talking to yourself and got crazy. Let's go. Go home." The man didn't a polite scolding. "Oh, it scared me too. I rushed out of the bureau and didn't even attend the meeting," the middle-aged lady sighed. "Let's go back." "I'm me." Chen Cheng's face turned red as she grabbed the ring. Suddenly she thought of the ring and quickly picked it up. "If you don't believe me, look at it. This is what that uncle gave me." "What's for you?" "This is obviously an ordinary iron ring that costs a few dollars a piece at a roadside stall." The middle-aged man took it, looked at it, and shook his head. "Okay, go home, Chen Cheng. I know you are alone at home with no one to accompany you. You can go find your good sisters. I will directly debit your account for any amount of pocket money you want. You can go wherever you want to go." "Dad, please, don't going crazy here." "But I was actually chatting with an uncle just now. He had a blue scimitar on his waist. He was very cool. He was wearing a black windbreaker and was tall and strong," Chen Cheng argued loudly. "Don't look for excuses to lie to us. Go home and listen to your father," the lady said helplessly. "But I really," Chen Cheng burst into tears. Okay, we believe you are." The lady nodded and reached out to touch her daughter's cheek. Don't cry, alas. This is your ring." Chen Cheng took the ring and actually cried. "I didn't lie to you." "How dare you lie?" My father was furious. See for yourself. He took out his mobile phone, and on it was the video recording that his uncle had sent earlier. When Chen Cheng saw it, he was stunned. In that picture, she was really the only one driving the car, very slowly, as if she was talking, laughing, and pouting angrily from time to time. It seemed that there was really someone outside the car walking along the way. She suddenly felt at a loss. I really saw an uncle who gave me this thing, she was still arguing, a trace of panic suddenly rising in her heart. Was that cool man from before really an illusion? Is he really mentally ill? Hallucinating? There is no uncle, no one is talking to you. You are all alone. The father's face also changed a little at this time. He seemed to see that his daughter had no signs of lying at all. If she really had a mental problem, he didn't dare to think further. Chen Chen looked down at the ring in his hand without saying a word, his eyes red. Let's go home. I'll drive. Mother got out of the car and walked towards Chen Cheng's sports car with a sigh. At this moment, a masked man rushed over quickly and hit Chen Cheng's mother hard. Chi! A knife stabbed deeply into the mother's abdomen. No, Chen Cheng watched helplessly as the knife stabbed her mother's abdomen. She rushed forward desperately and blocked her mother's body. In a daze, she seemed to hear a sigh. Clang! There was a soft sound, and the dark blue sword light flashed past like lightning blooming in the dark night. The gangster froze. My mother was dumbfounded, and my father, who was sitting in the car with the door half opened, was also dumbfounded. Chen Cheng grabbed the ring in his hand blankly and looked at the motionless gangster in front of him. With a pop and a muffled sound, the gangster fell to his knees on the ground, completely lifeless. The dagger in his hand fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Passers-by around him had gathered around him, but except for the 3 members of Chen Cheng's family, no one saw the blue sword light that bloomed at that moment. Everyone was talking and asking about what happened, and someone called the police. But at this moment, Chen Cheng's family of 3 still had that dark blue sword light blooming like lightning in their minds, and the brilliance of that moment was deeply imprinted in their hearts like a knife carving. Only then did the 2 couples react and looked at their daughter, who was in tears. I didn't lie to you, Chen Cheng murmured. Real. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1060. Garen was suspended in the air, overlooking what was happening to Chen Cheng's family on the ground. This was just an encounter he had occasionally made on a whim. What he left to Chen Cheng was not only a dark blue sword light that contained his own sword, but also some basic secret martial arts blood training techniques. If the other party could practice to the top, he could get some through the ring. Induction, so as to come back here to pick her up. If she cannot practice to the top, then maybe they will never see each other again in this life. Garen took one last look at the Chen Cheng family, who were still in a daze below, then turned around and flew gently into his own airship. A black hole slowly expanded in front of the spaceship, but no one in the crowd below could see the scene here. There was still a lot of traffic, and the whole city was running normally like a huge program. The spaceship slowly sailed into the black hole and quickly disappeared into the air. Garen was sitting in the somewhat dim cockpit of the airship, looking at the electronic light flashing on the control panel in front of him. He stood up, found a bottle of purple fruit wine, opened it, and poured himself a small glass from a goblet. He took a slight sip, and suddenly his figure trembled. The whole person suddenly froze, and the wine glass in his hand and the wine inside quickly began to be covered with white frost. Starting from the contact point of Garen's palm, a thick layer of frost spread quickly, freezing the entire wine glass and turning it into a purple piece. Gem-like lump of ice. The inheritance level was reached silently at this moment. It took Garen a long time to slowly come to his senses. Looking inside his body, he saw that the energy ball of the high-energy plasma bomb had already been absorbed, while the energy of the blood-red bead still remained, but it was quickly weakening. The cold prison peacock kung fu is truly terrifying in its ability to grow. He took a deep breath. This is the legendary secret of accumulation, accumulated over many years, and suddenly exploded. There was no movement or sound when the inheritance level entered. From the outside, Garen only trembled slightly and then froze the drink in his hand. That was all. They might think that he had lost control of his skills for a moment, but absolutely no one would have thought of him. It actually broke through to the inheritance level. How long did it take me from entering the resonance level to entering the inheritance level? Less than 3 years, Garen sighed. As the supreme secret martial artist, the living secret martial arts is indeed extraordinary. I originally thought that I had practiced so much the secret martial arts that has been around for a long time may just end without any cure in the end, without any big gains. I didn't expect that there would be such a tyrannical change. He recalled the original future of Nonoshiva that he saw in the space-time diagram. With the help of the surviving resources of the Scarlet Snow sect, ordinary Lily entered the inheritance level, but more than 100 years later, he was still killed by the White King's subordinates, the Light of Freedom King cavalry, in the Battle of Ice Valley. This was the fate of this body. All members of the Light of Liberty were terrifying masters at the level of eternal movers. Mad Dog Shinandi was one of the captains, and led the entire Light of Freedom to destroy one of the 3 major cities of energy masters, the capital of Nagatiko. That is, the entire Naga planet. After turning around from the accidental encounter with this small planet on the edge, Garen once again began to return to its proper orbit. I wonder what the relationship is between Carthage and the Light of Liberty. From the looks of it, this guy is probably the projection or clone of someone in the Light of Liberty. Thinking back to the huge and powerful silver scale he saw that day, Garen had a vague guess about the arm. It's too shocking to enter the inheritance level in such a short time. It's better to hide it first and wait until some time has passed before announcing it. While it can be taken seriously, it can also cover up some unusual places. Garen made up his mind, anyway. Carthage gave him a year of free time, and there was no rush. The spaceship passed through the rainbow-like jumping tunnel and reappeared in front of a huge circular silver-blue stargate. Welcome to the Velicus starport, please choose the jump time, a mechanical electronic female voice sounded. Right away, Garen replied. Enter the jump preset coordinates to start the track. Garen looked at the silver metal star track that was receding outside the window in front of him. The spaceship was moving rapidly forward in space along 2 metal tracks like railroad tracks, and it was still accelerating, getting faster and faster. The speed reaches the predetermined value and is about to enter hyperspace. Jump, everyone, please be prepared. The spaceship's smart prompt sounded. Garen walked to the spacecraft panel and glanced at the display screen above. The spacecraft's star map only had a few points. Chixu star, Naga star, Mother star, and the unknown planet number 1 that we just visited. There are only 4 in total. There's no point in going back now. It's just in time to break through to the inheritance level. Let's practice outside first. It's just in time to test the true power of the cold prison peacock technique. Garen's heart moved slightly. No planet was chosen as the destination. Open the nearby star map and scan to find any planet, not a star, Garen ordered in a low voice. Clear. A faint blue light began to flash on the screen, and a large radar display ring appeared in the middle, with a white pointer spinning continuously. In less than a few seconds, the scan results came out. After scanning the nearby 350 light-years, there are 250,000 non-stars in total. The scanning system gave an answer that left Garen speechless. Remove planets near common orbital paths. The range is 100 light-years. He narrowed the range to avoid being accidentally encountered by a passing spacecraft. The remaining results in narrowing down the range are within 160,000. At this time, the hyperspace jump has begun. Outside the view window of the spaceship in front of you is a large number of silver threads pulled out by the Milky Way streamer. It keeps passing back quickly, leaving a large number of planets behind, looking extremely gorgeous. Bang! Suddenly, the spacecraft trembled, as if it hit something and shook. When intercepted by a space anchor, the initial judgment is that it is 80% likely to be a space pirate, the aircraft intelligently answered quickly. The entire spaceship immediately slowed down quickly and recovered from the hyperspace jump state. Garen's face looked a little ugly. Once he was intercepted during a hyperspace jump and lost his high-speed jump state, it would be impossible to rely on a microship like his to jump long distances. Energy would be a troublesome thing. It usually takes at least tens to thousands of light years for a spaceship to travel from the Stargate to its destination. Such a long distance is as wide as the sea and desert, and even far beyond that level of imagination. Once it is stopped, if you want to go back to your destination, it will take a lot of time and trouble. It was as if a person was flying from Asia to America, and suddenly he was pulled off the plane and thrown into an unknown island in the Pacific Ocean, and asked to swim across by himself. This is much more difficult. If we had not encountered large spaceships, it might not be impossible for many people to die in the universe throughout their lives. This is the biggest danger of long-distance Stargate jumps. I have a 1,000th chance of being intercepted. I'm really lucky. Garen laughed at himself in a low voice. Quickly open the control terminal for manual operation. Connect the energy weapon mark of the energy mechanic. Connected, now start manual operation. Intelligent response. The traffic outside the window finally stabilized at this time. What appeared in front of Garen was a fleet of more than 10 huge ships. Each of these giant ships was like a floating black continent, with countless red and blue lights flashing on it. There were spots of colored light, and from time to time, mechas flew out from inside and rushed into space directly ahead. The space over there was blocked by the body of the giant ship, and Garen could not see what was happening there, but he could guess from the faint flashes of light and explosion flames that a battle was obviously taking place. There is a public channel signal, is it connected? Connected, Garen responded calmly. With a snap, an area was immediately divided on the right side of the spacecraft window as a display screen, and an overall scanning radar map was displayed on it. This is the Sapphire mothership of the Remora Business Alliance. All the spaceships that have just been intercepted and jumped, listen. All the spaceships that have just been intercepted and jumped, listen. The ones intercepting us in front are the Dragonfly interstellar pirates of the Silver Blue Star Sea. I hope everyone can send all the combat forces they can to help tide over the difficulties. A man's hurried voice suddenly came from the public channel. Interstellar pirates, this was Garen's first time encountering such a thing. Although he had always seen the existence of interstellar pirates on the miscellaneous news before, this was his first time to actually encounter them. After all, he had been living on the home planet before, and only after joining the Chixyu sect was he qualified to come into contact with the dimension of space, because the home star had been completely blocked from space. The Naga star comes from counter space and is not in the positive space universe at all. Apart from the Naga star, a large area around it is filled with violent counter space particle storms and dark matter energy raging. Unable to travel. Only this time, when he arrived at Chixyu planet, he obtained an interstellar navigation certificate because of being a disciple of Sangzan. Otherwise, he would not have even thought of leaving Chixyu planet. Garen glanced through the radar. There were hundreds of intercepted ships here. They were crowded together, and they were fiercely fighting against a fleet of yellow battleships in front. A large number of mechas and small bombers were released from both sides. Fighters, as well as a large number of pulse airships and torpedo boats. The fish missiles continuously released by the torpedo boats pulled out many white thin lines, which were extremely conspicuous in space. Then how can an artillery master fight in space? Garen has not been exposed to information in this area. his progress is so fast that many things have not caught up. Fortunately, he also made complete preparations before traveling. Normal energy weapon masters rely on energy weapons to fight in space, but I am an energy weapon master on Naga planet. My body is the key, and energy weapons are only auxiliary. This troubles the real main combat power in space. He still belongs to the pilot. Garen frowned. He thought that no matter how strong the mechanic's body was, he could only serve as a support in such a fierce aerial battle. Many pilots' mechas were terrifyingly powerful. The mechanic's style is not that outstanding. If you want to travel in space and fight on your own, the heritage level is indeed possible, but compared to the mecha, it is far behind. A mecha equipped with highly lethal weapons, as long as a 100-man first-level pilot has been trained in the space war, he will be able to encircle and kill an unequipped heritage-level pilot from Naga planet. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1061. The Naga star mechanic who focuses too much on his own strength is only suitable for landing ship operations or infiltration operations. Various actions in space are not flexible enough. After all, some places are limited by the upper body limit and cannot be compared with mechas. Garen shook his head and sighed. At this time, it would be much more convenient if we just release the energy weapons to fight. Now that we have been intercepted, if we want to return to the star field where Scarlet Snow Star is located as soon as possible, we can only use large spaceships. The fleet of Remora Business Alliance is a good choice. Galen quickly checked the information of this business alliance. This is a cosmic group engaged in medical and biotechnology research. The main target of the interstellar pirates this time is obviously them, otherwise they would not use extremely expensive space anchors to temporarily blockade them. Stargate. The reputation information of the Remora Merchant Alliance was pretty good, so Garen made a decision and directly found the largest spaceship on the radar and sent a dialogue request directly. This is the mechanic's private airship. I hope to board your main ship and borrow a jump to return. Please answer. There was a response soon. Dear Master Mechanic, I hope you can show your sincerity in using jump. His meaning is very simple and obvious, that is, he wants reward, and what is the best reward on the battlefield at this time? That is to help fight pirates. Garen also knew this. He pondered for a moment and answered quickly. You will see the sincerity. He walked to the middle of the airship. At this time, the airship was still behind the Merchant Alliance fleet, and there was still some distance before it could reach the pirates, so there was no need to worry about safety issues. Garen quickly found the space flight device that he had prepared just in case before traveling. This was used to equip his energy weapon Black Wolf. But there are only 5 of them. This thing is very expensive, and galleons are reluctant to buy more. He picked up a device, summoned a Black Wolf, and put the device on the Black Wolf's back. There was a click. The black device immediately got stuck on the Black Wolf's back, and then slowly opened its wings. It looked pretty good, turning an ordinary black giant wolf into a 2-winged black wolf. However, it is unclear what the specific effect will be. After all, the Black Wolf is only suitable for landing operations. It's time to choose my new energy weapon mark and choose the best one that can fight in space. Garen thought about it. Now that I have entered the 6th level of inheritance level, I can choose a new energy weapon mark. The first 2 were wolves. This time I can change to an energy weapon that can adapt to various environments. As an energy weapon master, he naturally has no shortage of energy weapons, not even rare ones, but he still has the commonly used types ready with him. Especially after returning from the Blue Frost sect this time, he has prepared a complete set of them for the market in advance. Basic energy weapons. Of course, it's too late to cultivate them now. After equipping the 5 Winter Night Black Wolves with black wing devices, Garen carefully adjusted them, then took out 5 twisted seeds from his body, and pressed the blue seeds into the hidden places in the abdomens of the 5 giant wolves. Don't let anyone find out. Unexpectedly, not long after pressing the twisted seed in, the 5 giant wolves suddenly underwent changes that even Garen could not have imagined. The size of the giant wolf swelled and grew taller and larger, jumping from more than 1 meter to more than 3 meters in height, almost like an elephant, causing the spacecraft to shake. A large number of translucent things were sucked into their mouths and noses, which seemed to be exactly this gas-like thing makes their bodies become so terrifying. But that's not the weirdest thing. What's most surprising is that the heads of these 5 giant wolves began to tilt slightly, and a big meat bag bulged out from their necks. There was a sound of tearing flesh and blood, and another equally ferocious wolf head protruded from the meat bag. Oh! The 5 giant wolves completed their transformation almost at the same time, raised their heads and roared, and the sound waves shattered most of the things in the spaceship into pieces in an instant. Garen was also a little stunned when he saw the series of changes. Does the final evolutionary path of the wolf have to be that of a 2-headed dog? He was also a little confused about this genetic change. Obviously, the genes were checked when they were created, and there was no such setting as a 2-headed dog. As an energy weapon he controlled, Garen immediately knew the special ability of this mutated 2-headed wolf. In addition to the 6-level force field unique to the inheritance level, the most special things are 2 points. First, the high-intensity quality far exceeds that of 6th-level energy weapons of the same level, regardless of strength, speed, physical recovery, and resistance. The level 4 distortion seed gives them 6 times the previous enhancement, which is simply a terrifying increase. Originally it was only a 3-fold improvement, but after reaching the great perfection, the Cold Hell Peacock skill can actually achieve 6 times the physical quality of the twisted seed. The 6-fold increase does not mean the number equivalent to the increase of 6 heads, but the combat effectiveness that far exceeds this change. Second, the key point is that the other head of the 2-headed dog has preliminary intelligence. Although it is extremely rough intelligence, it is undeniable that this is already a certain degree of intelligent creature. Is it intelligent? Garen couldn't believe it. This was intelligence achieved purely through biotechnology. It's not something like an intellectual brain, but the intelligence that can truly create intelligent life. His heart moved slightly, and he quickly transferred the language and some common sense information in the energy mark to various areas in the brains of the 5 2-headed wolves, and then input the basic logic into it. He suddenly thought about whether the void creature, the terrifying race that fought against Guyenduo, also used this method to create its own legion. The possibility of this guess is very high. Why every legion-level void creature has its own void legion? Maybe it's a similar method. The data transfer will be completed soon. As the data input was completed, the 5 2-headed wolves once again underwent new changes. They managed to stand up, using only their 2 hind legs. Thank you, Master, for giving me life. Thank you, Master, for giving me life. The 5 2-headed wolves adjusted their audio tapes and actually spoke directly. They neatly made human salute gestures and saluted Garen. Garen then remembered that a lot of the common sense information he had just entered was from the aristocratic education he had received. Compared with the common sense content of life in this world, the common sense of aristocratic life that has lived peacefully in the totem world for so long is obviously much more. This is why these 2-headed wolves have such strange changes. How do you feel? Garen looked at the 5 2-headed wolves with some confusion. After all, this was the first biological intelligent life he had created with his own hands. This feeling was unimaginable to anyone. Recalling my ignorant past, if my master had not given us wisdom, perhaps we would have been so muddle-headed and relying only on instinct to survive our whole lives, the tallest 2-headed wolf replied in a low voice. Their other head seems to have no function, but only one head to answer thinking. Maybe I should call you 2-headed werewolves, Garen said speechlessly. Why does this guy's tone sound a little weird? It feels a bit like a young man moaning carelessly while looking up at the sky at an angle of 45 degrees. Master, Please give us a name to celebrate our new life." The most powerful two-headed wolf bowed his head respectfully and requested. Their strength is all inheritance level, but they only have inheritance level force fields and extremely strong physical fitness, which is equivalent to 20 galleons in strength and constitution. Their agility has not increased much, only 5 points. After all, the cold hell peacock is not a giant beast of the void that is good at speed. Although it is not as good as the energy weapon masters of Naga Star, and it is not even as good as the resonance level, but this kind of quality is already much better than many other energy weapon masters. A name, Garen shook his head. Go and fight. If you can come back alive, I will give you a name. The 5 giant wolves immediately knelt down. Victory belongs to the master, and we will surely return victorious. The spacecraft isolation hatch opened, and the 5 giant wolves walked in one by one. They each grabbed a laser cannon in their hands. Although it was not a very powerful model, it was far more powerful than ordinary laser cannons. After all, it's an opponent's ship, so it's better than empty-handed. Anyway, there are more than 10 of these on the airship. If they are installed on the airship and they don't need to participate in the war, they might as well be given to these werewolves. Ah, for the great master. For love and justice. For God's glory to shine on the earth forever, the strongest two-headed werewolf roared loudly in the isolation cabin. Fight! Oh! The other werewolves immediately roared, their blood boiling. Garen was speechless for a while. What kind of information did I pass in? Love and justice are here. You think you are a saint? The 5 two-headed wolves quickly set off, flying out from the isolation cabin like 5 small fighter planes, heading straight for the battlefield ahead. Only then did Garen have time to check his situation after entering the inheritance level. No Siwalin strength 34.1, agility 22.2, constitution 40, intelligence 15.9, potential 49,800, and 30% soul limit 40. My physique has actually reached its limit. Garen was surprised and delighted. The original physical fitness of 24.8 increased sharply after entering the resonance level, but now it has improved so much after entering the inheritance level. As far as he knew, after reaching the inheritance level, the physical fitness of Naga Star's energy masters will stagnate greatly and cannot be improved. They can only rely on various modifications and fusion of rare materials to improve themselves. But that kind of relies on the quality of dead and foreign things to replace one's own body, rather than strengthening one's own body. This may be the key reason why they have never reached the limit of breaking through the eternal movers. In other words, they simply bypassed the limits of the soul and ignored the soul, but simply strengthened the body. This resulted in an imbalance. This may be the reason why they were unable to reach the strongest king level. Now, I am afraid that my physical body alone can withstand the attack of a heritage-level pilot without being injured. Garen clenched his fists, and the feeling of terrifying power in the totem world once again appeared on his body. The limit of the soul is almost reached. How should we go next? Garen's heart became a little heavy. If he takes the mecha route and fuses foreign objects, he will probably follow the old path of an energy mechanic and be unable to break through the limit. To become king level and take the ancient Yinduo route, the gathering of soul seeds is too slow. Although the true soul can eventually become immortal, the progress is too slow. There is another way, which is to take the simulated void behemoth route. This is the path taken by the Mi Wuhan prison peacock kung fu of life. In the end, the void behemoth belongs to the Mi Wu practitioner. This path may be able to bypass the limits of the soul. Establish your own void army. Perhaps, by practicing the Chi Snow technique, we can reach the pinnacle and forcibly condense the soul seeds. Garen suddenly came up with this idea. He now has 2 soul seeds, the Northern Halberdier Cold Flame True Water Evil Art, blue, and the Holy Phoenix Magic Book, black gold. They are all condensed from the peak of secret martial arts. But in fact, The original secret martial arts formed by these two soul seeds are not at the top level. The Northern Halberd Soldier's Cold Flame True Water Evil technique itself is a fusion of the Cold Hell Peacock technique and another secret martial art of life with a hot nature. It is formed by mutation. Because it is a negative mutation, its level is actually lower than the Cold Prison Peacock Kung Fu, and is about the same level as the Chi Snow Kung Fu. The latter Holy Phoenix grimoire itself is mostly derived from the core techniques of the civilization where the underground Buddha mother lived, but because only some parts are not comprehensive enough, the level is not actually high. From this point of view, even if you are not a top-level secret martial artist, you can still condense soul seeds. The key point is to achieve a unique spiritual and soul realm that is unique to you, and a change in the nature of your soul that is unique to you. If this is really the case, that will be easy to handle, Garen guessed in his mind. If this is true as I guessed, then as long as I practice Chi Snow Kung Fu to the top, I may be able to condense a soul seed belonging to Chi Snow Kung Fu. Garen had some suspicions in his mind. After all, compared to the previous worlds, his strength now is actually much higher than before. The terrifying physique reaching 40 points is already in the inhuman category. In the totem world, he may have been able to explode with the full force of the nine-headed dragon. It was possible to hurt him, but it was just a possibility. The terror of 40 points of constitution and the tyranny of the inheritance level force field put Garen at the peak of his history at this time. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1062. The five werewolves flapped the black wings on their backs, bypassed the merchant ship at high speed, and flew towards the battlefield at the front. They were like five inconspicuous dots. Compared with the fighting of hundreds of fighters, airships, and mechas in front of them, the five of them were the small dots melted in like 5 dots of ink dripping into an inkwell, without any ripples. Garen drove the airship closely behind him, and did not stop until it was abreast of the Merchant Alliance mothership. He stared closely at the performance of the five werewolves. Soon they were approaching a small torpedo boat. Chi! 5 laser beams were ejected almost at the same time. The small torpedo boat exploded suddenly and turned into a silent fireball. The sound was not transmitted because of the distance. But Garen could still feel the instantaneous vibration when the torpedo boat exploded. The cooperation is good. As expected, it will be completely different with wisdom, he nodded with satisfaction. Watching the 5 werewolves approaching another laser boat again, the difference was that this time 2 mechas were immediately targeting them. The opponent's standard mecha is all red with a number marked on it. It has horns on its head, which makes it look wild. Looking from a distance, 2 mechas soon started fighting with 5 werewolves. Soon, after the 5 lasers flashed several times, the 2 mechas were destroyed. The 5 werewolves continued to advance, and mechas from the Merchant Alliance gradually gathered around them to cooperate in the battle. With the 6th level inheritance level force field protection, if laser boats and gunboats hit them, they would stumble at most, with little damage. So soon the Merchant Alliance mechas used the 5 of them as an arrow and rushed towards the opposite side. The momentum is overwhelming. The 5 werewolves carrying laser cannons went around looking for troublesome characters to deal with. The pirate troops on the opposite side were quickly broken up by them, and in the end they had to retreat unwillingly. It seems that the inheritance level is a tyrannical existence everywhere, Garen sighed. There was only one heritage level master in the Remora Merchant Alliance and the pirate force on the opposite side, one on each side. During the fight with each other, the rest were in the state of resonance level generals. Faced with the appearance of 5 heritage level werewolves, even if they are not very lethal and can only rely on laser cannons, but the impact on the formation is very serious. Hundreds of pirate warships and mechas were simply overwhelmed and had to retreat. The entire battle was extremely relaxed, which also allowed Garen to see the status and strength of the heritage level existence in the starry sky. Dear Heritage Level Energy Master, thank you very much for your generous help. I am Lahu, the Commander-in-Chief of the fleet of the Remora Merchant Alliance. Miss Sandor, the General Director of the Merchant Alliance, hopes to invite you to board the mothership and jump together over long distances. The other party immediately spoke on the public channel, and his tone changed from dull before to very respectful now. Prime Minister? Is this the heritage-level pilot you just attacked? Garen asked. Yes, Miss Sandor is also the daughter of the President of the Merchant Alliance. She has gone to change clothes now and has asked someone to prepare a sumptuous dinner for you. I hope you can appreciate it, the other party pleaded in a humble tone. Okay, you are ready to tow my airship. Garen originally wanted to jump long distances with the mothership, otherwise it would be difficult for his small airship to fly back. Soon the spacecraft received the towing process and entrance arrangements. After waiting for the 5 werewolves to return, the spaceship automatically made a half circle along the mothership and quickly got into a small launch port on the side. Passing through a long black passage, blue light spots gradually began to appear on the surrounding metal walls. Flying into the innermost empty cabin, the partition board behind him fell down, and with a pop, a large amount of airflow came in from the jet port in the front, filling the vacuum. As the white fog filled the air pressure soon reached the standard. Garen then opened the door of the spaceship and allowed the 5 werewolves to stay in the spaceship. They were now so big that his space ring could no longer be placed. Moreover, the environment in the space ring is extremely boring. Now that they have become intelligent life forms, Garen can no longer take them back as objects. When Garen stepped out of the spaceship, the first thing he saw was a group of people waiting below. The one at the front is a heroic woman with blonde hair and a shawl. Her eyebrows are very sharp, like 2 knives flying diagonally on her temples. Her eyes were very sharp and cold. She was wearing a white t-shirt and water-blasted jeans, which outlined her perfect figure. Behind her seemed to be her subordinates and senior pilots in combat. There were also some people in different clothes on the side, who seemed to be the same. Others who come aboard and want to jump with the ship. As soon as Garen stepped out of the spaceship, his tall, strong figure and fierce temperament made the blonde woman's eyes shine. She took the initiative to greet him. Hello, I am Sandor, General Director of the Merchant Alliance, a heritage-level pilot. She stretched out her hand. Garen looked at the other person with a sincere expression. He also extended his hand and shook it. Garen, a heritage-level energy weapon master. Although this encounter with pirates caused us all to suffer a lot, it is still a fate that brings together people from all major star systems. Please follow me. Dinner is ready. A bald man with glasses behind the woman said loudly. Please, the blonde woman Sandor signaled to Garen. Here, only 2 people are at the inheritance level, and the rest are basically out of their sight and are just supporting roles. Garen nodded and followed her towards the tunnel leading to the inner warehouse. While advancing side by side with him, Sandor introduced the situation to him. There were also 2 energy weapon masters on the Merchant Alliance mothership, but they were both intermediate level, only resonating with the full moon level, and they were non-school energy weapon masters. Obviously, they were not related to the school. There's no way a master can compare. Garen also imagined that the martial arts masters were all extremely rich, so how could they be willing to work for others? After being introduced by Sandor, 2 couples, a man and a woman, stood up and saluted Galen respectfully. The dinner was very sumptuous, including basic fresh chicken, duck, and fish, as well as some rare fruits and unheard-of space creature meats. Sandor and Garen sat at a table alone. The energy mechanic looked very curious, as if he had not been exposed to this level at all. To be honest, the energy weapon masters I have come into contact with, well, how should I say? They have always been able to do support and logistics. Their control of energy weapons is dull and boring, they have no fighting rhythm, and they are vulnerable. So I used to some of the mechanics I have met are hired as auxiliaries. Don't be angry when I say this. I am an upright person and I won't hide what I say, Sandor said bluntly. It's okay. I can understand, Garen nodded. After all, most of us mechanics are like this after all. We mainly belong to the type of closed-door research. It is normal for us to be inferior to pilots in actual combat. It's like it's the same as comparing pilots to us in maintenance. He smiled. Almost everyone in the outside world thinks that NNMAI is only useful for logistics and auxiliary operations. However, after seeing you today, I changed some of this impression. The werewolves of your NNMAI are definitely no better than our pilots. It's weak, and the control is simply breathtaking, Sandor praised in admiration. At this time, a band began to set up a small stage in the corner of the mothership restaurant, and soon the melodious sound of bagpipes, harp and piano slowly sounded. A beautiful white blonde girl with a good figure stood in the corner and started singing. The world once gave us good things, but we didn't cherish them. The world once gave us hope, but we have been disappointed. The unpredictable nature of people's hearts often lies in their own inability to grasp it. I'll listen to the sound of the wind, listen to the falling rain, ethereal and pure. The woman's singing voice is gentle and sweet. Galen picked up the wine glass and took a sip of the amber wine. Nice lyrics. How is it? I wrote it, Sandor said slightly proudly. Garen smiled and nodded. Your Ramola Business Alliance is mainly engaged in human biotechnology business. The channels should be very wide, right? Of course, our Merchant Alliance ranks 43rd within the human race and is in the top 50. The average planet lord may not be richer than us, Sandor said proudly. Then I wonder if you have heard of Shinandi, Jia Long said as if he was asking casually, but his heart was slightly raised. Mad Dog Heather, the captain of the White King's Knights of the Light of Liberty, was the mastermind behind the destruction of the entire group of energy masters. Shinandi? You mean Mr. Shinandi, the Night King of the Light of Justice? Sandor reacted immediately. The Light of Justice, Garen narrowed his eyes slightly. I heard that his territory is in the Frontier Star territory, and it almost suffocates the Finite people. He is the commander-in-chief of the Special Operations Forces. We cannot be friends with such a big shot, Sandor said with a bitter smile. You ask what he does? It's nothing, it's just that a friend mentioned this big shot all day long, so I asked him out of curiosity. Garen smiled casually. The Light of Justice? He. Garen sneered inwardly. That's not what the scene in the space-time map shows. That guy's real nickname is not the Light of Justice, but the Mad Dog. The White King's #1 lackey. Loyal dog? I have a request here, an acquisition request. I wonder if you can do me a small favor. He came back to his senses and said. What do you want me to do? As long as I can do it, it's absolutely no problem, Sandor laughed and said cheerfully. Garen stretched out his hand, and the energy mark immediately released a light screen projected on the sides of the two people, and soon the influence of Zion's staff appeared on the light screen. Can you please help me post an advertisement for purchasing this kind of thing? This? Isn't this a sacred branch? This thing is not a cheap thing, but our Merchant Alliance has some in stock. No need to advertise. How many do you need? Can we see enough here? Let me give it to you, Sandor replied generously. No need for this. The quantity I need may be a bit large. Garen shook his head, at least one as big as the one in the picture. I want 1,000. 1,000? It's indeed a bit much, but after checking each branch, it should be barely enough. I originally thought that Sandor would immediately say not enough, but she didn't expect that. She actually frowned and solved the problem with just one sentence. A problem that has troubled Long for so long. Really, Garen was a little stunned. I won't lie to you, Sandor laughed. Although this kind of thing is hard to find, for us, we have some reserves. After all, it is good to break it and use it as lubricating powder. It is useful in the construction of jump engines and stargates. If you can provide me with this material for a long time, I am willing to pay 10% more than the market price as a reward for your merchant alliance, Garen replied in a deep voice. He is now worth a lot of money, so he naturally doesn't care about money. What are you talking about? How much do you want for this little thing? Sandor is not short of money. A behemoth like the Merchant Alliance has many inheritance-level offerings in it. The major factions are in dispute, and she is even the president. Women also need to find the strength to support themselves. The inheritance-level energy master in front of her is a good target. For her, even if the profit is maximized from such a small branch, it will only cost a few thousand gold crystals, which is not worth mentioning at all. That's the price of a medium-sized merchant ship. Garen understood what he meant and nodded. The two people immediately became more harmonious in their conversation. One was interested in the other, and soon they got closer and closer. They directly reached a trade agreement. The Zion cane was half sold and half given to Garen, and at the same time, Sandor even waved his hand. Directly sent a more advanced spaceship to Garen as a meeting gift. Garen also understood what she meant, and left his mecha master to send signals to her, and inspected and repaired her personal mecha. An initial friendship was established. The Merchant Alliance soon began to jump long distances. Huge and terrifying energy condensed in the jump engine, and then exploded and sprayed out. Boom! The entire Merchant Alliance fleet rippled around one after another, and soon penetrated the invisible water and disappeared into the starry sky. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1063. Red Snow Star, over Sahar City in the north. A huge spaceship like a pitch-black submarine slowly emerged in the sky, its whole body shimmering and covered with a faint silver light. It was a manifestation of the state that it had just returned from an anti-space jump. No one noticed anything in the cities below. There were invisible facilities above these mortal cities, making it impossible to see the outside world. The spaceship made a slight turn and flew toward the Black Wolf leader of Scarlet Snow Star. Garen was currently checking various information in the main control room of the spacecraft. The entire spacecraft is 328 meters long and 189 meters wide. It can be regarded as a veritable small warship, and the internal configuration is extremely luxurious. The upper part is divided into a restaurant, a general control hall, an activity hall, and a swimming pool. Logistics area, entertainment area. Storage space, cold storage, main engine of large spaceship level. It can withstand heavy armor of level 5. Level 5 armor represents self-circulating armor that cannot be broken even by level 5 pilots operating mechas. As long as the energy furnace is still functioning, it will not be destroyed. This spaceship is still brand new, and its cost is staggering. Although Galen doesn't know the exact amount, it's just an ordinary small warship. It costs tens of thousands of gold crystals, but this one doesn't cost more than hundreds of thousands, let alone mention it. The entire spacecraft can be used as a mobile living base, which is very convenient. He had the urge to pilot a spaceship to escape from the range of the mechanics master and take his family members with him to take refuge. But unfortunately, he knew that the battle between the Red King and the White King affected the entire two races and countless star fields, and there was no way to avoid it. As a relative of Burin, he could even be said to be one of the most important people, and the White King would never let him go. The spaceship quickly landed in the Black Wolf territory, and this big ship also attracted some Chixu sect disciples to come out and watch. Very few people even in the Chixu sect own such a large spaceship, and everyone uses miniature spaceships. Only the top few will use such a huge vehicle. When they saw Garen walking out, everyone was immediately relieved. It is not an exaggeration to say that this powerful genius, second only to Carthage, has such a car. Galen. Suddenly, a slender figure appeared in front of the entrance to the Garan spaceship. It was the third senior sister Iwa, and her face was full of anger at this time. Is it you? Is it you who beat Aloran into a coma after being seriously injured? Alolan, Garen frowned slightly. What are you talking about? Third senior sister. Eva was wearing a white dress and holding a short knife in her hand. He was shaking with anger. Still pretending. Uh-huh. A dazzling blue light flashed, and Eva suddenly drew out the knife. The cold air condensed into a bundle of terror and lengthened like a short knife, sweeping towards Garen's waist. There was a crisp sound, and the extended blue sword light was shot away, freezing the position where Garen was originally standing, and then instantly shattered into countless fragments. Garen's figure appeared behind Eva. Third senior sister, I don't even understand what you are talking about. Aloran is seriously injured. But what does that have to do with me? Her body is covered with your kind of terrifying heat damage. Who else in the entire Chixu sect can use that move besides you? Eva waved her sword and attacked again. Swish, brush, brush. With several blue lights shining in succession, Garen was able to completely crush Eva with just his physical fitness. After all, although she had entered the inheritance level, her physical reaction was far inferior to Garen's. Antlers. The light of annihilation, Eva suddenly spun around, and the inheritance level force field quickly condensed into a majestic stag. When she lowered her head, the antlers instantly shot out dozens of blue beams of light and rushed toward Garen. Each of these beams was blue on the outside and black on the inside, and there were faint traces of spatial cracks left in the air they passed through. Iwa is really serious about this. This is a move that uses the power of inheritance. Bang! A beam of light grazed a dead tree in the Black Wolf territory. In an instant, the whole dead tree exploded, turning into countless ice fragments and exploding like bullets. Bang 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 bang. Countless blue and white ice fragments exploded wherever the beam passed by. All these fragments of ice exploded violently at the speed of bullets, carrying a heritage-level force field. Pay! Eva shouted, with a hint of murderous intent in her eyes. If everything started because of me, then let me end this mistake alone. She seemed to have made up her mind regardless of everything. Countless beams of light filled the sky and all moved towards Garen, as if they were all going to converge on one point at the same time. Viewed from above, it looks like many blue rays of light are flowing towards Galen at extremely fast speeds. Garen was about to dodge when he suddenly felt a secret breath escape from the darkness. Double prison lock. He simply stopped avoiding it, and the blue knife at his waist was unsheathed with a clang, and the blade was wrapped with black thread to draw a black circle around him. He. As if there was a sound of air leaking, the blue beams of light were all shattered in an instant, and were chopped into pieces in the air by the double prison locks. Chi! But there was still a fragment carrying a terrifying inheritance-level force field, which slashed across the side of Garen's face. If he hadn't avoided his head in time, this blow would have hit him directly in the head. She really wants to kill me. A trace of scarlet blood flowed out. Garen stretched out his hand to touch the wound, his eyes slowly turned cold. Senior sister, if you do this again, I will fight back, he smiled coldly. Eva was also a little dazed. She didn't expect how long this guy only had. After going out for a trip, I jumped from the resonance level to the inheritance level when I came back. How is it possible? How is it possible? Nothing is impossible. Who makes me a genius? Garen smiled and covered the wound on his cheek with his hand. After a moment, he let go. The blood mark on it had completely healed and disappeared. I don't believe it, Eva gritted her teeth. She felt that she probably didn't use her full strength just now. Light of annihilation, the Buck's force field reappeared, and countless blue beams of light rose into the sky, encircling Garen. It's useless. Garen pressed his hand on the handle of the knife. Cut. The double prison locks exploded instantly, black knife marks and blue light intertwined together, like a phantom beside Garen. Countless blue lights shattered and disappeared into the air. Garen's expression didn't seem to change at all, and he was still looking at Eva with a smile. "Long time no see, senior sister, you seem to have become weaker." A whistling cold wind blew between the two of them, creating a slight whirlwind. But the chill in Eva's heart at this moment was colder than the wind. "I don't believe it. I don't believe it." The light of annihilation. The sky-wide blue beams of light shot out again, rushing towards Garen in all directions. This is Eva's most powerful move. It is driven by 12 layers of red snow skills, blended with a trace of original power, and combined with the resonance of all her energy and equipment. This time, she has even exhausted her full strength. Even the inheritance level force field that protected herself was removed by her, and all of it was used for attacks. Boom! Suddenly, a figure was knocked away. Not Galleons, but Eva. Garen didn't know when he actually left his original position and appeared in front of Eva. "Sister, did you make a mistake? I didn't say that I would stand there and let you beat me." Garen smiled and looked down at Eva, who was knocked to the ground and dragged out a long mark. "Vomit." Eva spit out a mouthful of blood and tried to get up, but her body could hardly move. "How can you be so rude to your senior sister?" Suddenly a plain voice sounded from the side. Carthage slowly appeared on the left side of Garen and Eva, holding the hilt of the sword in his hand, and he didn't know when he stood here. "Injuring senior sister at will, this is the following offense. It is disrespectful. I still don't apologize to senior sister." Carthage apologized, but there was no sincerity in his tone. "Then I'm really sorry, senior sister Eva." Garen suddenly laughed. "I accidentally missed and injured you. But who told you to be so weak? I thought." He didn't say any more and walked to Carthage. He originally planned to secretly send a message to Eva to explain, but he just sensed a trace of Carthage's aura and immediately restrained himself. "Let's go back." Carthage glanced at Garen, and a black vortex instantly appeared in his eyes. A terrifying pressure invisibly enveloped Garen. Garen's body was shaken. This aura far exceeded the inheritance level, and he would not fall down the level. The 40-point constitution had no effect under this aura, but Garen quickly adjusted his body and appeared to be in a subtle state of being suppressed. Compared to pretending to control one's own energy and blood, no one is more powerful than him who has practiced secret martial arts for many years. He can't take action now. He can't take action until he knows what cards Carthage has and his level of strength. Let's not talk about whether he can win now, just that he can win now. Garen would not take action either. He also planned to find out more details about the destruction of the Energy Master from him. The destruction of the Mechanic Master involved the involvement of the Eternal Mover, which was far beyond what he could resist now. At this time, due to the fierce fighting here, someone was already rushing over from a distance. "It's senior sister Iwa's fluctuation. Hurry. Hurry up. Senior sister seems to be injured, her energy weapon mark is damaged." There was a sound coming from a distance. "Gone." Carthage turned and walked towards the distance, seemingly slowly, but in fact the pace was very fast. Garen followed closely, and the two met head-on with the 4 or 5 people who were coming. These people also saw them and stopped instantly, with extremely nervous expressions on their faces. Brother Carthage, a boy with glasses, reluctantly stood up and greeted him. "Do you only scare these little guys?" Carthage, a woman shrouded in a white robe, slowly fell from the sky. She was the second senior sister, Alice, who was also Renee's sister. "Alice? I just went out for a casual stroll to welcome my junior brother back. We are both members of the section. How could you say such hurtful words?" Carthage smiled slightly and replied calmly. Garen also clearly felt that the energy in Alice's whole body was highly tense, and she was obviously extremely afraid of Carthage. Renee is dead. Alice's sudden words made Garen's heart tremble. I just discovered that her whole body was impaled on an iron pestle, all her blood was drained, and she was hung at the entrance and exit of junior brother Garen's black wolf collar. Garen's heart suddenly tightened, and his energy was instantly focused on Carthage. I clearly asked Aloran to let senior sister Renee go. It's him. He closed his eyes slightly and slowly tightened his grip on the handle of the knife. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1064. The wind blew slightly by everyone's side, and Carthage and Alice could vaguely feel the flow of cyclones, which was a subtle exchange of energy. If nothing happens, I want to leave. Carthage smiled flatly. As a former senior brother and sister, doesn't Renee's death have any impact on you at all? Alice's voice became colder. Renee, who made a mistake, is a sinner herself, and death is his best destination. Carthage replied lightly, turned around and ignored Alice, and walked away. Garen followed him, paused, glanced at Alice, and continued to follow without saying a word. There is a growing sense of urgency in his heart. There is no doubt that Carthage killed Renee, but he just doesn't know if he knows that he let Renee go. If he guessed that he intercepted him that night, if you are the one who takes action, then you will be in trouble. Garen clenched the hilt of the knife. He didn't know what chance he had of winning against Carthage. Although on the surface this guy was only at the inheritance level, his actual combat power was not downgraded, and he even had more hidden things. But he can be sure of one thing, that is, he will never dare to take action here. Feeling slightly calm, Garen accelerated to follow. The two crossed a wide plain grassland and entered a dense pine forest with scattered snow foam. The lush green pine forest was quiet. From time to time, some winter squirrels could be seen scurrying around. They were frightened by the movement when the two arrived and ran around. Suddenly Carthage stood still and faced Garan in an open space. Do you know why I came to you suddenly? His voice was as calm as ever, as if he was just talking about a simple topic like the weather is good today. Why? Garen also stood still and asked in a low voice. Carthage turned. I can give you a chance to take action. But, only once. Sure enough, he knew it. Garen was shocked. Even Renee Aloran, who had been sent to a place as far away as the Four-Ring Star Alliance, was actually captured. No. No, it might be a test. If he really knew, he would never say it so openly, but he might just take action. Garen instantly realized, was he cheating? I don't understand what you are talking about. He opened his mouth and frowned, making a puzzled look. Carthage didn't speak, just stared at him quietly. Garen also faced his eyes without showing any signs of weakness. Many times people would have the illusion that a person's eyes never lie. Carthage also had this delusional common sense, so the Garan he saw in his eyes was clear and full of doubts, which immediately shook his previous guess. There are many things, and you should know how to grasp them yourself. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Garen's frown deepened. Carthage also frowned slightly, but then he relaxed again. A black-red bead popped out of his hand. With a flick, the beads shot out immediately, accurately floating in the air in front of Garen. This is for you, eat it. You can break through the inheritance level, this thing is the biggest contributor. Here we go again? Garen knew there was something wrong with the bead. Although he didn't know what method was hidden inside, he was confident that his cold hell peacock body could cope with any method. Anyway, just swallowing it would be enough. He simply grabbed the beads, stuffed them directly into his mouth, and swallowed them. Boom! The energy of this bead is actually much stronger than the previous one. Garen felt as if he had swallowed a piece of soldering iron, which was about to burn his stomach completely. A heartbreaking feeling of discomfort suddenly surged out of his stomach. Well. He didn't hold back and directly covered his abdomen. Seeing this performance, the doubts in Carthage's eyes immediately dissipated. This is blood energy essence, which can stimulate the maximum potential of your body and harmlessly improve your overall strength. One pill is equivalent to your accumulation of hard work for a year. He paused. As long as your performance satisfies me, I will consider increasing the supply of blood energy essence. At this time, Garen could already feel that the bead was once again trying to contaminate his body with that weird blood color, but it was spontaneously swallowed by the peacock technique, and all the red color it emitted was completely eaten in a few strokes. The discomfort in his stomach disappeared immediately, but Garen still pretended to be uncomfortable. When you are strong enough, go and settle your old grudges. Carthage said the last word and turned to leave. Garen still covered his abdomen, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. It wasn't until Carthage left for a few minutes that he slowly straightened up. It's really powerful not to fall down. He recalled the true martial mirror realm mentioned by senior sister Renee. After returning to one, the water mirror, the silver mirror, and then the pen realm of the eternal mover level. He is now at the water mirror level, but he is certain that Carthage is definitely at the water mirror level, or even the silver mirror level. Among the Red Snow sect, there are only a few people who are known to have comprehended the true martial mirror, including Alice, Renee, Carthage, and himself. Of course, this is at the disciple level, and you don't know about it at the elder level, but it is unlikely that you have not realized it. After all, after living for so many years, no matter how much you accumulate, it is enough to achieve it. Apart from this, the rest of the people, including senior sister Ava, are not of concern. Although that is the case, the Gaian Duo Demon King does not have these realms. They follow the route of pure strength. Maybe I can try to take such a path, he recalled some common sense that Hesaz once said. I really didn't find that Gaian Duo had explored this aspect. They focused more on their souls. As for the physical body, it is just a skin to them. Gather soul seeds and achieve true spirit. This is the path of Gaian Duo. The more soul seeds there are, the stronger they are, the closer they are to immortality, and the stronger their innate abilities are. The strength is also stronger. Use your soul to stir up vitality and change everything in the world, even the rules. This is how they evolved. Feeling the blood beads in the body emitting a terrifying steady stream of energy, this energy was devoured crazily, and then converted into the purest cold energy and supplied to Qixuyagong. Qi. The blood beads completely melted and disappeared. A blood bead that according to Carthage's estimation would take half a year to absorb energy was actually absorbed by Galleons in just a few minutes, with a 100% energy utilization rate, which was only 5 times higher than others. The energy utilization rate of 10 is twice as high. Even the blood-colored means of controlling people were completely converted into energy by the devouring ability and supplied to Qi Sui Gong. Puff. A fierce cold air emitted from Garen's body uncontrollably, instantly freezing all the surrounding pine trees into icicles. The white cold air spread quickly, but then seemed to shrink again. The outward expansion and inward contraction are constantly changing, as if the two forces are constantly confronting each other. After a long time, Garen finally slowly opened his eyes, and the coldness all over his body suddenly retracted and he retracted into his body. The original crystal of Qixuyagong in the body once again turned a little darker in color. The 13th floor is here so fast. He himself felt it was incredible. According to records, after Qi Shuigong entered the inheritance level, every advance from the 12th level required at least 1 year of improvement. This was based on the fastest super genius as a benchmark. And how long has it been since Garen entered the inheritance level? He actually progressed again and reached the 13th level. However, after sensing his body, he found that the energy of the blood beads that Garen had just swallowed was not left at all, and only a little bit of the energy that had been swallowed remained. This time, all the energy reserves of Zhejiang were used up. No wonder it takes so long to break through the first level. The energy required is so terrifying. He glanced at his newly changed attribute column. With the progress of Chixyagong, the computing power has begun to feel like it can't keep up, and waves of expansion are constantly coming from the energy mark, as if something inside it may erupt and explode at any time. He knew that this was a sign that his calculation power could not keep up with his skill, and that he could not control it. At this time, the attribute bar changed again. Nono Siwalin Strength 39.1, Agility 27.2, Constitution 40, Intelligence 16.2, Potential 49,800, and 30% Soul Limit 40. The strength has been increased by 5 points, the agility has been increased by 5 points, the physique is completely full, and the intelligence is the smallest, only increased by 0.3. According to normal logic, I should now look for foreign objects to fuse and absorb into my body to improve my physique in disguise, but this path. Garen let out a slight breath. Finally, he took a look at his soul limit and decided to gather new soul seeds as soon as possible. He left the pine forest and quickly returned to the hinterland of his black wolf territory. He released the winter night wolves to patrol and wreak havoc in the territory. He sat in the central mansion and began to select the new ones he had previously obtained from the Bluefrost section secret martial arts skills. Judging from the secret weapons obtained, there are only 2 that may be able to condense soul seeds. This is not a matter of level, but that the peak realm requires a special understanding and realm that is different from the previous soul species. This is the most important thing. Garen's current intelligence has reached 16 points. Although due to world rules issues, he did not derive the dual skills of the totem world, his terrifying calculation power alone is already very powerful. 9th level pure body technique, and destructive impact fist. These 2 were selected to perfectly fit Garen's current fighting system. The pure body technique tempers the body and the surrounding force field. Once it is mastered, it can activate terrifyingly powerful defenses from 1 to 9 levels. No matter how the opponent hits it, even the defense cannot be broken. The destruction impact punch seems to be the perfect evolved version of the double speed punch that Garen once understood. With 2 to 88 times terrifying fist pressure, no one has ever practiced this kind of boxing to the highest level, because its practice requires extremely terrifying physical support. This is not a false physique produced by the combined fusion of foreign objects by an able master, but a truly tyrannical body that is completely under his own perfect control. The 9th level pure body technique has 9 levels, while the destruction impact fist has a total of 8 levels. Both are terrifying secret weapons that can be used to establish a sect. Of course, such secret martial arts are at the same level as Chixyagong. However, due to various reasons, the training threshold is harsh, which makes the inheritors more and more disillusioned, and eventually the secrets fall into the hands of other sects. But even so, no one in the Bluefrost sect practices these 2 unpopular secret martial arts, because his threshold is too high. The reason why Garen selected them was because they were very suitable for him.